Up about. Oh, well, that was quick.
Those are fired up, man. Good morning.
I guess so, but I asked you what you're fired up about. You're like, we're off.
I'm always fired up. Welcome to First World Third Rails, your host, Marlon Taylor, aka Mayhem, aka Mr. Disruptive, with his shotgun pilot, JD. Top of the morning, my friend.
Absolutely. All right, so
coming to you from the beautiful Space Needle today.
All right.
Downtown Seattle.
What are you fired up about?
Oh, what are I not fired up about?
All right. Well, I have something very important. So now when I did this, there was nothing in there yet. However, I need to put some tea in it, but there's no manly tea left. So I'm going to be using today
foo-foo tea.
Trader Joe's. Exactly.
He's going foo-foo on me.
This blend, no caffeine. We have a bunch of teas in there, but not sorry about all the noise. Hold on.
No, you're good. You're good.
I'm going to mute myself, get the tea bags out.
Mute it out. While you're doing that, I'm going to let all of our 3 listeners, viewers, subscribers, however
we're up to 3? You, me, and
however many they are listening to 2 old codgers like us. Goals are important. Goals are important. I've always thought goals to be important.
Okay.
My goal for today, sharing this with our community.
Yes.
Since I've been now officially and fully reinstated to Twitter, my goal.
Great. Congratulations.
Thank you. My goal, I will not be silenced by the petulant child, MAGA, or anybody else. My goal, having said that, for today is to end today still active and not suspended on the platform. So
now, today includes more than just this hour.
Right.
So you've made it for the first few hours.
Yeah, I made it for I'm not sure when I got reinstated. I did a tweet, said I'm back. Some of my most loyal Twitter followers were pleased to hear that. One in particular, San Francisco 49er fan, my friend, who is down in the Bay Area, sent me a GIF stating she was happy to see me back, and I'm happy to be back. And I will not be silenced. You can send me away. You can shut off my microphone, but I will not be silenced in the face of bigotry and racism and stupidity. All of which 38% in the MAGAs are.
It's like a Chinese menu.
It is.
Bigotry, stupidity, misogyny.
It is. It is. But I'm going to get through the day without being suspended again, and we'll pick the fight back up next week. And I'm sure I'll be suspended next week. But for today, I'm back.
I'm proud of you, man.
Hey,
I haven't been kicked off Twitter since I joined, whenever. It was in the last decade. Remember when we went and checked? I've been a member since like 2008.
I know. And I was right behind, a couple of years behind you, if I remember right, 2011, something like that.
And I've had a dozen posts, approximately one every 3 years.
But I do have a substantial number of followers here, friends on Facebook. I don't know what's on Instagram. I don't. Who cares?
You seem dismissive today, Mr. Disruptive.
I what?
You seem dismissive. Yeah.
Yeah, when you're just coming back in to the cesspool that the petulant child runs, you got to spin that engine back up, and I'm just not coming in at 150 miles an hour.
Oh, that's interesting. So you cooled off, did you?
Cooled off a little bit, so we'll churn it back up.
All right, you got to ramp up.
There's a lot to churn it up on. I think when you and I went off air yesterday, that was at the crux of Marjorie Troglodyte Green and her comments about Congressman Bowman. And I'm glad I was still suspended yesterday, because when Karens, white Karens, make that statement that they feel threatened because a black man is passionate or animated about a given topic, you know how I feel about that.
It's unfair, and it's
beyond unfair. Especially now, do I own my moniker, Angry Black Man? Absolutely, and wear it with pride. But you know, these are things we fought hundreds of years ago, and we're still fighting them today.
Well, on the bright side, Marjorie Taylor Greene is contributing to a body of evidence that aggressive black men aren't going to lay a hand on her. So she has absolutely no evidence of whatever it is accusation.
No, and I saw the video.
Oh, is she still alive?
I saw the video. She was the aggressor. It was her getting in his face. But I felt threatened. Oh, whatever.
Here are a couple of important considerations. So, I can't speak for everybody, but I can speak for white males in general. Marjorie Taylor Greene is going to have a short shelf life. Now, one of the things that we do here is we're like, don't do ad hominem attacks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm going to just I'm going to go around the edge here. Marjorie Taylor Greene does not possess characteristics that will buy her any bonus rounds. That's really good wording.
I hope not.
That was really good. That was
I hope not. I hope that not only applies to her.
Well, there are a lot of things that really help with white males. And she doesn't have a lot of them.
I hope you are right. And I hope that applies not only to her, but to MAGA in general.
Well, there's this whole concept,
which is a higher issue
of radioactivity, which is called a half-life. And the basic premise is that the primary decay, where you get to the halfway point, occurs much faster than the subsequent decay. So I think we can feasibly project that racism and misogyny will remain with us as a species for some indefinite period of time.
Certainly remain in the Republican Party, because that's their platform.
Okay, well, we're going to touch on this someday. I think it's omnipresent. In other words, I think you're going to have predispositions which might be considered racism. I have them. Decent people still have these things. They're kind of wired in some respects. But the whole idea is that you can have a thing, but it's not producing results.
Okay.
Right. And so really what's going to happen is there's going to have to be some type of decision made by all participants. Is my behavior producing results? Is this person I'm supporting getting me more money, more time off, doing a better job for my family? And by so many of those measures, which take a little time to evaluate, and they could take as many as 2, 3, 4 cycles, in Congress, they run every 2 years, or in the House of Representatives. But I predict that she's not going to get any bonus rounds because of who she is and because of she's her, and eventually she'll be judged ill. That's my theory, and I'm sticking to it.
God love you, man.
But remember your thesis, which is we don't have time.
God love you, man.
We don't have time for all this crap. So
God love you. God love you, brother.
I don't even know what she said because I don't expose myself.
It doesn't matter. You just said to me, hopefully, over a period of time,
her lack of results will start to
you realize
somebody else in that position.
Hey, is this person doing this for me, doing that for me? Are they making my life better? Blah, 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 down the list. Blah.
And in this case, it would include the other representatives in.
Let me ask you a question.
Uh-oh.
Who, and not to shoot your theory and hope down.
Oh, shoot it down. That's okay. It's fine.
Who is the current front runner for the Republican Party?
Trump.
Has he done any of those things?
Yes, because you and I completely disagree on Trump's meaning in the world. He's actually provided many benefits to MAGA.
Name one, other than bringing racism and bigotry,
subjugate people of color, and
other than bringing racism and bigotry mainstream. Name one.
Okay.
They're still poor. They're still living in their trailer park. They still don't have a pot to piss in. They still send him money when they're living in a trailer park. So help me understand what he's done for them.
All right, I want to split things. I would like to talk about.
I don't want to split. It was a simple question. Name one thing he has done for them other than bring racism and bigotry mainstream.
Well,
he's done nothing.
Oh, he cut taxes.
For the 1%, they're not in the 1%.
They don't know that.
Come on, man. If we're going to have a discussion, let's have a discussion.
Okay, but the thing
they're not in the 1%.
To me, the value is different. When I talked about producing success and hopes for Marjorie Taylor Greene, she is currently closely aligned with McCarthy.
So what?
And she is receiving some type of support, as is Jim Jordan.
So what?
From the other members of the House of Representatives, the other Republican members.
So what?
Right. So there's a point at which the other members of the House of Representatives may redirect because they're not able to achieve any of their goals. So far, there's been a lot of smoke.
Call me when that day. Call me when that day happens. Call me up when that day happens.
Nothing has happened yet. They haven't succeeded in producing anything yet. Because nothing that they've done guarantees that they will be reelected.
Call me the day it does.
Well, Boebert almost lost last time.
Almost is only good in horseshoes.
I understand.
Back to my original.
Taylor Greene did not have a resounding victory.
Back to my original point, and I don't want to go into my tool bag and pull the I word, but this is the crux of what I've been saying for 5, 6 beyond years now. I go to my toolbox when you think, as you cast that ballot, that the person you are voting for has and will act in your best interest, because they're not. They haven't.
So there's a reason that they don't know that. And the reason is because the Democrats keep saving them. In other words, we're looking at a situation,
right? This has nothing to do with the Democrats.
You remember this? Remember
you have to look in the mirror and you have to ask yourself, I'm living in a poverty-stricken trailer park in Kentucky, which is last in everything in terms of measurables. And I'm blaming the Democrats because that's what Fox tells me to do. So I'm electing morons to stay in Congress and do for me, yet your education is poor, your infrastructure is poor, everything about your existence is poor, yet you continue to do it.
Okay, so I think Hakeem Jeffries, in the privacy of his conference room with the other members of the leadership team of the
Uno
momento.
Sorry about that. Sorry, folks.
No need to apologize. Anyway, here's the drill. We keep walking close to the edge and nobody dies. Right?
People died during COVID.
I think we're coming to a point, and I was curious that Biden started negotiating with.
Don't sweep that aside. People died during COVID based on their misinformation and lies.
Yeah. It was at about, what was it, about a 4-time rate or a 10-time rate in red counties that they died? Okay. So that's evidence. Evidence is building. However, I think at some point the Democrats are going to have to calculate whether they want to let the Republicans succeed with their policies would that be the end of the Republican Party? In other words, it's problematic because the Republicans, blah, 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 and then they're unsuccessful in many ways, and the Democrats do things to offset all of that damage. What if we just let that damage unfold?
In some respects, we are. And I don't have the statistics in front of me, but if you look at Kentucky from education, from job growth, from median income, if you look at infrastructure, if you look at where Kentucky, and I'm picking on Kentucky because I know they are poorest in education and in median income and in so many facets of just normal life that many take for granted.
Right. So if the federal government stopped transferring monies from blue states to red states, they would really be in a pickle. So that's what I'm saying. I think there may be a calculation made to let Republican policies take full effect, hammer the fuck out of everybody, and then they'll run away screaming.
Well, that's kind of
that's a concept. I don't know.
If it's
a valid concept.
I think that might be the blueprint for Florida, because Florida has become such a cesspool right now, and Disney making news that they just said, "Look, screw you, Ron DeSantis." Disney's playing chess. DeSantis is, I don't even know what the hell DeSantis.
Tiger just declared that they would not be building making a $1 billion investment.
Yep.
And
that's going to hurt. That's going to hurt.
The Florida Department of Economics, in other words, their internal group says, well, that's 2,000 jobs we'll never have.
That's a lot more than 2,000 jobs they'll never have. That's a lot of revenue, a lot of that is a serious stream into the economy of the state of Florida that just got taken away.
All right, so I'm going to ask you a favor. This is what I'm talking about. And then you would say, well, it's taking too long, but I would be like, let the people feel the full, bear the brunt of these Republican positions.
But here's the problem, JD. Here's the problem. When you have state-run TV, which they do, they come on and tell the morons in the bubble, it's not Satan who did this to you, it's Joe Biden, and they believe it.
That's okay. That's okay.
They believe it.
That's okay.
How do we break through that cycle? We don't.
There is absolutely no one in the world that McCarthy would not crow about getting his policies in place. And then what you're saying is that Fox would continue to blame Biden.
Yes.
And that's fine, but keep in mind that a lot more people are becoming independents. And this is kind of a, I'm not advocating for the demise of the American system. What I'm wondering, what I'm speculating about is whether we have some self-defeating behaviors as Democrats. So let's just go through this. The blue states transfer more money to the red states through the federal government.
Yep.
A lot of what the Republicans want to do is they want to strip out benefits for Medicaid. They've backed off on Medicare and Social Security, at least right now. But for Medicaid, for children, support for children, SNAP, they want work requirements for Medicaid. And that's a separate discussion. There are elements of that that I'm kind of understanding. But the point is that all of those policies will hammer their own constituency.
Yes.
And you're saying that Fox would come on.
As they do every day.
Right. But if I am an individual living in my low information environment and my life is materially diminished by having a Republican majority, even I will put my own existence in front of Fox. In other words, I'm making it visceral.
That assumes, as that individual, you can comprehend the reality, and therein lies the problem.
All right, so let's go to a lot of what the
In
Republicans.
other words, they're living in an alternate universe, and you know that.
The Republicans champion states' rights. And then they deviate when they want to have a national abortion ban, but that's okay.
Right.
So this is an example of something that I think even a progressive party could start to get behind with this concept of states' rights, particularly since the blue states are reasonably well positioned to weather, WEATHER, to weather this type of transition to more decision-making
At the state level.
Now, there are a couple of states that Texas is going to be a boom state for the foreseeable future, and that's based on global energy requirements and things of that nature. So there's no way you can dial Texas out because it is just a hotbed of activity. And
I wish we could. I wish we could.
But Florida is in fact.
But Texas, you know what?
Because here's what's happening with Florida. In Florida, the cost of living is going up dramatically.
Right.
Okay. And they want to turn Florida into the new Martha's Vineyard.
Yes.
And they're actually experiencing kind of a problem because these rich people are making everything so expensive that that the poor people can't live in some proximity to service them.
Which is what they want.
Yeah.
Is what they want.
Right. And if you look at PBS did a really good overview on safe places to live, and Florida is the worst place in the United States to move to. It's just terrible.
Them in Texas.
Texas, yeah, there are a couple. Phoenix, Arizona is the worst place to move over the next 20 years.
And everybody's moving there.
They have extreme heat, and Florida's going to be suffering from sea levels. So
Yep.
All of these things getting richer people who can't get a damn thing accomplished, and they're slowly going underwater, and everything about it is becoming like a third world country. The airports are deteriorating. The roadways are deteriorating. Everything is just deteriorating. Florida will eventually flip. And the biggest issue down there is the Latinos. So do the Democrats need to just take a breather and say, okay, let's try this and let the Latino population just get hammered into the ground? So let's take a very specific Republican policy, which is in Florida. DeSantis had declared that if you have more than 25 employees in your organization, then you need to demonstrate that you have gone through e-verification for all of your employees.
Okay.
That is very specific to Florida. It is very specific to DeSantis.
Okay.
Have you seen the videos of all of the warehouses and construction sites that
are empty?
There's nothing going on. They've all ground to a halt.
Right.
So this policy is affecting individuals.
Okay.
And individuals and their own needs will eventually trump whatever the hell Fox is saying. So I'm just
you are giving them more credit than I do in that statement.
It's called Maslow's hierarchy of self-actualization.
It's called Fox News comes on and says it's not DeSantis's.
Fox has managed to get into Maslow's hierarchy of self-actualization, but it's still not more important than water, food, shelter, sleep, education. In other words, yeah, it's in there and it's creating problems, but it creates problems in an undifferentiated environment. If you're actually forced to ground and it's apparent that the Republican majority has brought you to this place.
If you have,
putting a theory out there,
if you're not living in an alternate universe and you have comprehension skills, yes, you would realize.
In an alternate universe, when you're every single waking moment, you're having to compensate for shortfalls in everything related to government, which would be Republican in Florida. Using Florida as an example.
But the megaphone comes on and they hear Biden did this to us.
Okay, I heard you about that. What I'm saying is that okay, so let's go to a different place. Let's go to a different place. Let's go to Tennessee, and let's go to the people who were marching, the young people who were marching.
Okay.
Okay. They are watching the news, and all news is broadcasting the death of their kind.
Yep.
So any place that they congregate, it's the probability that they're going to be shot is still low. Technically, it's still low, but emotionally, it's a possibility. If I congregate somewhere, whether it's a baseball game or at a mall or in a movie, or I go to anything
Church,
there's a probability now that somebody is going to shoot me with a semi-automatic weapon. So I don't think there's a damn thing that Fox or Newsmax or OAN can do that will put their broadcasts and their false information in front of the reality that they are now starting to see clearly. So there is a point there, and I always like when you say we don't have time. Well, maybe we don't have time unless we just let people bear the brunt of these policies. I think that might actually compress all of this and all the efforts that the Democrats make. Well, why are we doing this? So let's go to Biden actually in negotiations with McCarthy. If Biden had simply said, we're not negotiating, we can talk about this later, I think that would have been vastly preferable.
But not effective as a president. As a president, that's your responsibility, job, role to negotiate policy that uplifts and helps all of us. That's his job. That's why he's there. That's why he's elected. I'm
mining a new vein here. And my new vein is that the Democrats should let the Republicans get what they want. That's what I'm talking about. I'm thinking there may be value in complete, absolute, utter destruction of a big slice of the MAGA pie.
If it weren't for state-run TV, I'd be all in the boat with you. But state-run TV comes on and says, no, don't trust what you're seeing and hearing. Trust us.
Listen, if you voted, you know that you voted for a Republican. In other words, state-run TV can't come on and say, you voted for a Democrat. You're like, the fuck I did. I voted for a Republican. So did all my friends. In our district right now, we have a Republican representative.
Right.
And everything sucks.
And they, in that same breath, go, it's Biden who's doing it.
Yeah, but Biden is doing it. He's participating in it. And I'm saying that may have been a mistake.
No. Biden's not participating.
Yeah, he is actually appointed 2 senior advisors to negotiate with McCarthy's 2 senior advisors.
Okay, we're talking about the debt.
I'm talking about this concept of, is there a point at which we need to let the Republicans get what they want so that they can starve on the vine? That's my theory. I'm not saying this is a sound thing. I'm just discussing it as an opinion.
No. And I appreciate that. They already are dying on the vine. We've covered
they're
that.
not, because we keep them alive. We keep the Republicans alive. Okay, so if Trump had been president again, more people would have died from COVID, and more people would have lost Medicaid, right?
Yep.
So that would necessarily have been a positive thing. The only thing is that there's collateral damage with other people who don't deserve it. That's the only problem. So we keep avoiding collateral damage to people who don't deserve it, and the people who do deserve it aren't getting what they deserve, which is their own fucking policies rammed up their rammed down their throats or up their, you know what's. I mean, if you took anybody and said, you're going to have to live with every single aspect of what your representative wants, they'd be like,
no, they wouldn't.
That's
when I go to my toolbox
and put him into that environment where he no longer has any type of support. He no longer has any benefits coming from the state. He no longer is receiving any type of stipend. His taxes are.
Who's he going to blame? Who's he going to blame?
He would have to blame the person he voted for.
No.
That's too much of a disconnect. You cannot tell me that Fox can reach into a person's mind and say, I'm telling you that you're not responsible for this because you voted for a Republican in your district. I know I voted for the Republican. I don't think they have that much pull, not that much. It's only when things are in stasis and they are not getting reamed. Basically, I think the country just needs to take a headshot and go down.
We'll see.
I'm asking.
I already know. And how do I know? Again, Marlon's Mr. Clairvoyant. How do I know? This is how I know. Let me give you an example.
All right.
You and I both know and have known for most of our adult life how drugs are brought into this country. We know. And I got in trouble when I was at Ingram Micro because I engaged with somebody I knew who had just retired. This is the part that sent me, this is how I got into trouble. This is what sent me into the red. He retired from the United States Coast Guard after 20 years service. I respect the fact that you gave 20 years to the United States Coast Guard, but you of all people know how drugs are coming into this country. You of all people know it is not brown people, Mexicans bringing fentanyl across the border. Is there some component and facet of that? Sure. But you of all people know how the vast majority of drugs, which brown people and Mexican people don't own boats and planes, are coming into this country. But Fox comes on and says 5 million people are coming illegally across our border carrying drugs. They're sending their worst, the rapists, the druggists. And it's like fucking red meat.
Well, I'm not catching the connection to any other aspect of what we're talking about.
That's the connection, is the disconnect from reality because of the state-run TV. We know what the reality and truth is. We know what the facts are.
All right, so let me give you an example. A face full of your own medicine would be, if you're a drug user, you're allowed to suffer the slings and arrows. So this is actually going to happen with the reductions in care suggested for Medicaid and then support for hospital systems and rural hospital systems. A lot of rural hospital systems are dying right now.
I know they are. But
everybody busts their ass to save that person who may have been a nice person at one point, but they just had yet another fentanyl overdose. What happens if people just die and they can't get food and they can't get water? In other words, what happens if we let people just get a face full of what they say we want? We want complete freedom. We don't want to be beholden to anybody else.
They blame.
I don't know how you can blame a disembodied something when you yourself are suffering in real time. Your town is dying, which would happen in a lot of red states.
That's the ignorance. Therein lies the ignorance.
I don't think ignorance trumps personal survival. And nobody's having to actually make it on their own because we keep helping them out.
You just cited the best example, Tennessee. Your constituents, your fellow townships were just gunned down.
Right. So I'm saying that's a
And you're
positive
blaming
event.
everything.
That's a positive event. We're getting activity.
But you're blaming everybody but the person responsible who you elected to represent. I'm sorry?
I like what you're saying, and I kept, it's so good. I keep interrupting you. Forgive me. Restate what you were saying.
No. All I'm saying is,
Oh, I'll restate it then.
when we reach that point, the reaction is to blame rather than look in and say, holy shit, my neighbor was one of those gunned down. Who's responsible? Who do I look to for solution to my neighbor being gunned down? And who do I blame for this? Who do I blame that a member of our community took an AR-15 and shot up the mall? Fox tells me blame Joe Biden because he's not allowing good guys with a gun to protect me. Because of Fox, they are in the bubble, and once they are in the bubble, we have no way of getting them to see reality versus alternate reality.
All right. Let me know.
Yeah. I mean, that's as simple as I can.
I love this. I love this. This is fantastic. And just by sheer good fortune, we actually have a case study.
Okay.
It's the one that you're referencing. It's the one that I referenced. Do you remember the discussion about John Moran?
Yes.
What was the distinguishing characteristic of the John Moran incident? Let me go now. The distinguishing characteristic was that he was in Tennessee because he's a Memphis Grizzly.
Yes.
And there are no laws governing weapons. You don't have to have a permit.
Yes. Open carry.
Any place, anytime, for any reason, anywhere that you want. So at that point, Tennesseans are getting a clipful, if you will, of Republican policy. And so I'm going to agree that Fox has influence. And that influence, you can just turn it like a dial, is going to be more profound with people who did not spend statistically the majority of their life being worried about being shot. In other words, when you make calculations, it can be predicated on your own experience. So if I'm in my 40s, I've only spent the last decade concerned about being shot.
Okay.
If you're in your 20s, which would be a quarter of your life. So you spend a quarter of your life worried about getting shot. But for somebody who's in their 20s, they first became sentient. As far as they're concerned, they've spent 50 to 80% of their life at risk of being shot. And what I'm saying is that personal experience too slowly starts to trump whatever the fuck you're hearing from anybody, because you're dealing with your own personal experience. So in order to have the full experience, you need to have all the benefits withdrawn, right?
Right.
You need to actually experience the outcome associated with the policies of the group that you've chosen to send to state government.
To represent you. Yes.
I'm saying that I agree with your assessment that there is an echo chamber, but I'm also saying that the only way to break that grip is not through logic, it's through visceral personal experience. And that's what we're seeing in Tennessee. Those kids are like, shut the fuck up. I don't want to be shot by an AR-15. And they're like, well, Biden this, Biden that, Democrats this. And they're like, I don't want AR-15s. No, like the gun doesn't kill people, people kill people. I don't give a shit. I don't want to be shot by an AR-15. And that experience now is actually starting to kind of move into the forefront, and they're going to represent a more vocal group at some point. And they'll be able to vote, and they will start to make changes. It's reflected in the Justins being returned to the State House. So this is I'm not championing this, because here's what I would be proposing. I would be proposing for Biden to say, all right, here's the drill. If you really don't want to approve the debt ceiling, that's your decision. And let's see what it gets us. And let everybody just fucking suffer. In other words, there's a group of people who keep trying to offset the suffering that we deserve, that we should get. We should get some fucking suffering. We should.
I know, but they're trying to do the right thing. I hear you.
Maybe that's not the right thing, though. I think it might be the wrong thing to protect us from what the fuck we deserve.
You know how I feel about that.
I know
we deserve to suffer because of our ignorance. I'm all on board.
Right? Do you suppose Hakeem Jeffries and his Democratic planners, who they're only 5 votes short of majority in the House?
Right.
I wonder if part of what we're seeing, because if you think about it, they're really kind of quiet. You've got Debbie Wasserman Schultz challenging Jim Jordan.
Yep.
But they're really kind of quiet. They're actually a lot quieter than I would have anticipated. And I think they are seeing some of the benefits of letting the Republicans get their way. That's a theory. I can't.
Well, let them have the megaphone.
Let them have the megaphone and see what good it does you. At the end of 2 years, what have you gotten? You've gotten fucking nothing. You got these hearings. You got nothing.
I know, but all they have to do is simply turn around and blame the left, which they're doing.
If the left is not present or participating, it gets a lot tougher.
It does, but they still point the finger and they go.
Yeah, but that won't trump personal experience. My situation has not improved. I am still being fucked over.
We'll see. We'll see.
Well, no, we won't see because
I cited.
No, we keep finding a middle ground, and the middle ground doesn't get us where we need to be, and we don't suffer the consequences. It's like a low-level infection. It's like having a headache or something. You're never right, but you don't die. It just seems like some type of extreme event is required, and that might have been what they were looking for with Trump. I think they were looking for something in extremis, and I understand the sentiment. And somebody could say, well, you wouldn't agree with what they want. I would say, I wouldn't agree with what they want, but I appreciate the sentiment of something breaking this fever that we have that doesn't get us where we need to be, and nobody suffers the consequences and changes their behavior.
Right. Well, see here, and again, this is so odd for me because it is, because even before we started the podcast, you were the pessimist, I was the optimist.
This is still pretty pessimistic.
And we have completely flipped. And my pessimism stems from the fact that we are at May 19th, and we have far more mass shootings than we have days in the year. And not all Black and brown people have been shot. Everyone has been shot. Yet
that's a data point. That's a valuable data point.
Yet we still are having debates. We are still having arguments. We are still allowing Uvalde, Texas, to hide in secrecy, conspiracy, and the shadows of not reacting to that properly to that shooting and
Well,
then
if you were
covering
at
it
that
up.
shooting, irrespective of political party, you're going to come out of that shooting. If you're still alive and you've lost a loved one, or perhaps you have a wound on your person now that you barely survived, you're going to vote for gun control. So that's really kind of the answer. We
I
just
would
go
hope.
around and
I would
everybody
hope.
needs to suffer at least a 22, and you
I
get to
would-
pick where you're shot. You could pick your upper arm, your lower arm. You get to pick, and you'd have to have a personal
I
experience.
would hope. I would hope. I would hope. I would hope because the echo
I don't want
chamber,
to be shot. Don't get me
the
wrong.
echo chamber chimes in and says the reason you were shot in the arm is because we didn't have enough good guys with a gun. And the reality is,
Well, hold on. Tennessee has already pitched that, and they got it. Everybody there can carry a gun. So that's actually a very good litmus test. I assume there are a standard distribution of good guys and bad guys, and they can all carry guns. How's it working?
In Uvalde, Texas, there were dozens of good guys with guns standing in the hallway listening to children being slaughtered.
All right. If you come to me and you say, I am going to predicate my entire argument on the fuck stick pussies in Uvalde, I'd say, it's an outlier. It is
No, it's not an outlier.
You're not going to have a SWAT team that is like, okay, go in there. That is the exception to the rule. Something happened there. There was something in the water. They didn't eat their Wheaties. Some fucking thing happened that kept them from going in. That was just an exception. I would not paint any police department with that brush.
It's not. No, I wouldn't do that, but it's not the exception. And here's why it's not the exception.
It is the exception.
Police
arriving on site and doing nothing. That is the exception.
Okay, I'll stipulate that. But there is not, and this is why I'm saying it's not an outlier. There's not a police force or reaction unit in America faster than an AR-15. We know this. We know this.
Let's go to this. I like this. So here's a change that I would expect to see, but I haven't seen yet.
And you won't.
Well, I don't know. So let's take a group that has historically aligned with MAGA, and that is police officers.
Okay. Who were in the Capitol on January 6th. Yes.
Now, just stay with me on this. If you're traveling through your life and you're like, I want to be a botanist, I want to be an oceanographer, I want to be an accountant. You following me on this? I want to be a banker. I want to be a police officer. There's a certain element of self-selection in becoming a police officer.
Okay.
You're going to have a predisposition to order, which is they want order at the expense of
law.
They want order for my people at the expense of everybody else. So there's a lot of self-selection that goes on, which is why there's a disproportionate number of MAGATs who are police in the police force. Now, I don't believe that holding some of the philosophies of MAGATs makes you a bad person. I don't believe that.
I do.
I know.
I do.
But police officers now are facing this decision that I'm talking about, because increasingly there are bullets that are penetrating everything they have.
Right.
So police officers, I'm starting to hear more anecdotal evidence that they would rather you did not have a fully armed public. They don't want to be shot and killed every time they go out to check on domestic violence or when they pull somebody over. So I'm going to say that police officers are potentially a group that would be like, well, we're getting some of the medicine we asked for as a populace, and we don't want it. I think that more police officers would be in favor of gun control now than were 20 years ago. And I'm going to consider them a subset of very conservative individuals who would probably fall closer to the conservative line, the MAGA line. And I think they're just looking at it and, like, from personal experience, I don't give a shit about politics. I don't care what Fox says. I don't want to get shot by an AR-15. I can suffer a 22 or maybe a 357, you know, one round every 8 seconds, but I can't tolerate, I can't survive this. That's a personal decision. I can't personally survive being shot with an AR-15.
We'll see.
Yeah, it takes too long. But it's I mean, I would characterize that as a potential third rail, which is you need a face full of what you're asking for. You need to get what you want.
They've been getting what they want.
No, they're not getting what they want. We keep offsetting.
We've had more mass shootings.
They're not getting a full measure.
We've had more mass shootings than days. That's a full measure.
Well, you know what really surprised me was that Christ didn't do better in Florida. And DeSantis.
I don't want to go to my toolkit.
No, this is really interesting.
I don't want to go to my toolkit. So
I'm not sure DeSantis would fare as well if he ran right now. In other words, he took his subsequent victory, his second victory. He took that as there's an actual term for it, which just slipped my mind. A mandate.
I think the only way Florida gets fixed is through Disney. So once the impact of Disney's decision starts to get felt, that, to your point, may be the paradigm shift that changes Florida and keeps them from going over the cliff. But to your point again, we need to let Florida go over the cliff so that we can then come in and do what needs to be done.
Well, Disney has climate concerns, and what I mean by that,
we should all have climate concerns.
No. Disney can't go up to Minnesota because they can't be open year round.
Right.
Okay, they have covered walkways. So that's why they're on, like Disneyland started in a temperate
state. They can't be open. They can't be open year round in Minnesota, but they can't be open year round in Florida if Florida's fucking underwater.
But they're not underwater yet. But here's the point. When they purchased all that land, it was a sweetheart deal. They got to run their own district, and they have built a juggernaut down there, which is absolutely massive. Yes. And it's open year round, and it's a tourist destination. So climate change is actually working against Florida because it's making, what's the next state up? Georgia?
Georgia.
Okay, so Georgia's more temperate, right?
Right. Which Georgia?
I believe you could have a Disney World open 24/7
in Georgia.
In Georgia.
Yeah.
So when they originally built Disney World, all that land was bought anonymously. So nobody knew what was going on until they sprung it on them, and there they were, and the rest is history. But if Disney World says, listen, we're looking for a new home. Let's pretend it's Amazon HQ. We're looking for a new home. Right. So they wouldn't be doing it under cover of darkness now. They would be doing it with the complicity of somebody who is campaigning to bring them in. So they could go to a New Mexico too close to Disneyland.
California, right?
They'd probably avoid Texas. Arizona.
They would avoid Texas.
Arizona
they would avoid
has no water. Arizona is going in the crapper. It's in.
They would avoid Arizona
because of the Colorado. They cannot survive in Arizona. Texas is
the problem with Georgia is still their voting.
No. Georgia's going to turn more purple.
They better turn purple if they want it.
2 Democratic senators right now, and Kemp is not a bad governor.
If
like the guy who was in
if they want to entertain the potential and possibility of Disney coming there, they need to change much faster. May I remind you, last year the All-Star game for the MLB got moved out of Georgia because of their restrictive voting rights. They've got a lot of work to do in Georgia. I hear you that they're trending purple, but if you want to entertain Disney, you gotta
Well, you made an excellent point. You made an excellent point, and I want to use your point and apply it to Georgia. You said that the only chance for Florida to evolve would be because of Disney, and they would see the impact of not having Disney. So I'm saying that some of that would also apply moving to Georgia, or I wish I knew my Louisiana or someplace.
Yeah, Gulf State in Louisiana wouldn't work because of they'd have to literally shut down.
Well, you'd actually be
hurricane.
coming closer to the center of the US, and it would be more temperate, and you could have it open year round. That's the key. It has to be open year round, and you could actually almost move into Southern Virginia now and be open year round. We don't get as much snow as we used to.
Right.
Now, we have some cold days, but we don't get as many cold frost days as we used to. In other words, it's fundamentally different. So North Carolina, South Carolina, I'm just doing the Eastern Seaboard, but you can move in and you'd be more centrally located, and you could get certain types of guarantees that would be ironclad. In other words, Disney was there. They were isolated. But if they went to a new state, they would be invited there. They get tax breaks. The state would cooperate to find a parcel of land that had the proper characteristics, bring in power, set aside different resources.
Georgia would fit that bill.
And then they'd also be able to get some type of isolation from any government.
Satan types.
Yes.
Georgia would fit that bill, but it will not even have potential until they address the things that they are doing.
Well, Disney wouldn't move tomorrow. They'd move in 10 years. And I'm saying in a decade, Georgia's going to look fundamentally different.
I hope you're right.
All right. So there's another factor in all of this. Almost, we're
right there.
The whole labor force is going to change.
Yes.
And individuals are going to lose their power.
Yes.
So the only thing that an individual is going to possess that a machine does not is a vote.
Yes.
So a vote is going to become very, relatively speaking, you're going to have to actually pay attention to your vote. And as the number of jobs changes, there's a whole thing with population, and we're actually like this right now, so we don't have as many people coming through as we used to. It's geopolitical. It's all the geopolitical aspects of the entire demographic of the population. It's not as bad here as it is, say, in Japan or in Russia, but it's a factor. So you're going to have fewer people, young people coming up, but you're also going to have a lot of jobs that are never going to be created.
Correct.
You're going to start losing some jobs, and a lot of jobs won't be created. So there will be a labor shortage. It's predicted to go through about 2040, but
we're already seeing the effects of that.
Right. That's based on current requirements from corporations, and all of those are going to change. So do you want to align with a political party that literally does not want you to have a fucking thing? And they're ensuring that you won't have anything because they fucking refuse to tax the people who do have the money. Because the Republicans are doing two things at once. They're taking and they're not taking. And they're not taking from the top 1%. They're not taking from corporations. They're not taking from the people who have the money.
No, because
this behavior slowly, I believe, will catch up to them.
Yeah, we have officially flipped from optimist and pessimist.
Well, you know what? That's a testament to that's a testament to how much influence we have in each other's lives.
We have completely flipped, man. Because I don't see it.
Well, no, I'm just,
and I don't see it because of the ignorance and comprehension of reality. That's why.
All I'm saying is that your personal experience trumps whatever the fuck you see on TV.
It should have trumped it long ago, but they still
Well, that's because we keep
they
saying
are
raggedy
they are
asses. Let's just
still living in
Medicaid go. Let's just have work
they are
requirements.
they are still living in the trailer park. They are still on welfare. They are still on SNAP. And they are still sending $25 to a dude who's flying a private plane and breaking laws all over the country. And
Well, as the boomers retire, they're starting to pull their capital out of the markets.
yes, they are.
So capital acquisition for new ventures is going to be in the crapper. Almost all of your corporations are going to start being they're going to penny pinch like you cannot imagine. They're going to give up.
They're already
give up so many things that people thought that they could aspire to. They'll no longer be there. They'll just be gone. There's going to be so little cash available and so little money available that if you don't get a friendly government, you are totally screwed.
We shall see, my friend.
We shall see.
Because all it takes is troglodyte green, which is what she's doing right now.
She's going to be gone.
To come on and say, you are hurting because Joe Biden is hurting you.
I didn't vote for Biden.
I voted for
you. So that's even in a low information voter. Once they're in a world of hurt, they're going to be like, voting for you is not helping me. That's really how simple.
I hope you are right on that, my friend. Oh, I hope you're right.
Only 5 seats away. We're
I
5
hope you're
seats
right.
away from majority. That's all.
I hope you're right, man. Because
we got 213. We just need to get to 218.
Because we're talking about a population that has the IQ of a box of crayons. Apologies to box of crayons everywhere. So I hope you're right.
I can be of two minds at the same time. I can understand the attraction of Trump and being part of that crowd, and not make them stupid.
I can't.
I
can't distinguish.
That's why we have so much fun together.
I can't distinguish between being a supporter of his and being stupid. They are one in hand together. And I say that because what has he done for you? Nothing. Other than the bigotry and racism, nothing.
All right. So we're about to wind it up again. Hey, listen, you want to take
us
out?
Great discussion. As always, great discussion. We got the weekend in front of us. I think I'm in a bad mood today because my Lakers lost last night. I think that's
did they?
Yeah, they did.
Where's the series stand?
They're down 2-0 to Denver.
Oh, wow.
I said last night to my better half as we were watching the game, and she hates, I think, watching the game with me because when it comes to the Lakers, my intensity level is not quite at the Cowboy level, but it's up there. And I said, one of the things that bothers me with our current society and generation is that because of primarily social media and the fact that everybody walking the planet with a phone is a publisher right now, and whatever thought in your feeble brain.
That's us. That's us.
Whatever thought, but we're different.
No, we're not. We're just like everybody else.
No. We are thoughtful behind the things that we say.
That's an opinion, but I'll grant you that.
We are primarily fact-based behind the things that we say.
All right. I'm sorry. I didn't.
In other words,
get you off your original.
In other words, you and I don't believe that Hillary Clinton is running a child sex ring out of a pizza parlor in New York. We put thought behind what comes out of our mouth.
That is true.
And correlating it to the Lakers and what I said last night, we simply don't have an appreciation for what we are witnessing real time. I do, because I'm a savant when it comes to sports, basketball and football in particular. And so even though it's my Lakers and I was crushed by last night's loss, I have such an appreciation for what I'm witnessing with Joker. And I said this, the Denver Nuggets center. I said this the other day, but after game one, that in fact, I texted it to my friends. I've got Denver Nugget, Denver Bronco, Patriot, Celtic, Seattle Seahawk, Mariner fan on
you're
one
bad.
thread.
You're nationwide.
On one thread. And I said this to them the other day. If I'm I'll paraphrase my text to them. You guys know I've been watching the NBA for a very, very long time. And I'm telling you right now, I know that look that I'm seeing in the eyes of Joker, the Denver Nugget Djokovic. I know that look. And that look is, okay, while I respect the fact that you voted in Joel Embiid of the Philadelphia 76ers this year's MVP.
He is. Okay.
I respect that. He deserves that. I agree with Joker on that. But I recognize that look in his face. Okay, you didn't want to give me MVP for a third straight year. You didn't think I deserved it for a third straight year?
I'm taking.
Fine. I'll show you. I'll show you why you should have given it to me for a third straight year. Joker is playing basketball that I equate to a level of Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He is at their level right now. And I'm seeing it, and I have such an appreciation, even though it's my Lakers, I have such an appreciation for bearing witness to the level of basketball that he is playing. It is phenomenal. This is in the Lakers' words. Because I've listened to some of the post game behind 1 and 2, those losses. I've listened to the comments, and they're consistent. He's a unicorn. He's a unicorn. We're watching a unicorn.
I hope I get to see him someday.
It is phenomenal, man. It is phenomenal. But that sends us into the weekend. We have game 3 tomorrow night in LA. All the stars will be out. When Uncle Jack's in the house, it's a big game. So I'm sure he'll be courtside, and we'll see if we can get our first win of this series. Because if we don't win tomorrow night, it's over. It's over. I hate to say it, it's over. And I'm going to respect the Miami Heat and their culture, because I think Miami Heat are going to represent the East with all that they do. Shaq said it best, and I'll close out on this. Shaq said about the Miami Heat, who I now expect to beat the Boston Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals series. That game 2 is tonight. The Miami Heat play the same way every night, every game. Boston is up and down, Lakers up and down, Denver not as much. The Miami Heat play the exact same way every night. They give you 150% on every possession, every second of every game. That's the Heat culture. And the last thing I'll say about the Miami Heat that separates them is their front office, led by Pat Riley. I know you know that name. Their front office, they are making contributions to Miami potentially winning this year's NBA championship, led by Jimmy Butler, Jimmy Buckets. They have at least 5 players who are making significant contributions who are undrafted, not even drafted, and are a huge part of the success that they're having. So what does that tell me? That tells me that they have a front office that not only can identify talent, but a coaching staff led by Eric Spoelstra who can take that talent that wasn't identified by the rest of the league and mold it into the success that they are today.
how many on their team were undrafted?
Right now, without looking at the roster, 5 for sure that are making significant contributions that weren't even drafted.
That's a wow.
Yes. And the fact that they weren't drafted.
That's like, I know something you don't know.
Yes.
How often does that happen?
I can't ever think of that. And not only not being drafted, but then get into Miami, buy into their culture,
And go to the championship.
Which is, we play hard every single second of every single game. And I love LeBron. I'm not a LeBron hater like Skip Baseless and the many others out there. Kenny Smith talked about this in the first game against Boston. If you look at the tape, Miami is sprinting back on every defensive possession. Boston not doing that. And Kenny said that's the most disappointing thing about Boston. You are letting a team with undrafted players outwork you, out hustle you, outplay you. There's no excuse for that.
Well, I would expect the outwork, out hustle if you're not drafted. That's just going to be human characteristic.
That's the Heat culture.
The outplay is the surprise.
Yeah, that's the Heat culture. That's the Heat culture.
Well, that's what we're going to do, people. We're going to out hustle, outwork. I don't know if we can outplay everybody in the world, but by God, we'll try.
They're trying. They're trying. So I'm a NBA fan, but this season and this postseason has been unlike any other I've seen in recent memory.
Well, that's good because it helps with all the suffering that's imposed on you.
Yes. And as I take us out, here's the best part of the upcoming weekend. Seattle is predicted to get back to Seattle.
Seattle is predicted to go back to a regular temperature.
A regular temperature. I'll believe it when I see it.
How hot is it there right now?
I'm seeing 60 right now.
Oh, that's wonderful.
63 currently. Predicted to be 72 as a high today.
That's beautiful.
Sunday's high is predicted to be 63 for the rest of the week. So we'll get back into the problem is our air now, as I mentioned earlier this week, is starting to be impacted by wildfires in Canada. It's got wildfire smoke coming into the area. Never has it been this early. Climate change, hoax. We'll see how people, I don't know how you.
God willing,
know how you ignore it.
Next week, you'll still be there. That's all.
I'll still be here. Hopefully,
right.
The Space Needle will be over my shoulder. Hey, as always, as I close the show each and every time, we are grateful for whatever the number is that's out there that's listening to two old codgers like you and I. We hope we bring a smile to your face. We hope we make a light bulb go on and make you go, I didn't think about that.
Didn't think about that. Didn't think about starving all the maggots out.
Yes. We hope you like us. We hope to hear one day see comments on what we're providing to you.
Yeah.
And most of all, please subscribe to us so we can continue on this journey together.
All right, bud.
Have a great weekend, my friend.
And you too, sir.
Back from the spirit. Where am I? I'm out there. Have a great weekend, my partner, and we will pick it up next week.
All right, bud.
Good seeing you.